Georgia is going to Willie B to play South Carolina. The number 1 ranked Dogs are favored by 24.5. This is a noon Eastern kick, and a lot of interesting storylines around this game. South Carolina took a drubbing against Arkansas last week. Arkansas never was really out of control in that game, kind of dictated their tempo to South Carolina. South Carolina continued to struggle on the ground. Couldn't really stop the run, couldn't run the ball for the second week in a row. Spencer Rattler, while they didn't win the game, actually threw for over 350 yards, threw a touchdown, 1 pick. Not as consistent as you'd like to see in terms of completions, but still really was carrying his team during this game. I mean, he carried his team on his back to be competitive in that game against Arkansas because he wasn't getting a whole lot of help from other places within that program. Again, the running game and stopping the run was relatively non-existent. So with a spread so large and the defending champions coming to your place, how does South Carolina win this game? If they're going to slay Goliath, and we've seen it happen before, you saw it happen last weekend in college football, the spread wasn't quite 24.5 to a road team, but still, we've seen anybody can beat anybody. And Shane Beamer said, I don't want to hear that kind of talk around this program, but we're not actually in the, within those walls, we're not in that building, so we can kind of have that conversation right now. But how does South Carolina win this game? I think first and foremost, you have to win momentum early. Have to find a way to get it. Because Willie B is one of the best atmospheres in college football. That place will be rocking. I mean, it will be absolute anarchy. It'll be chaos at kickoff. Can you capture that? Can you bottle it up? And can you sustain that for a few quarters? If you want to have the crowd behind you for the majority of the game, stay in the game. Be the aggressor. Throw that first punch. All of those things. And I don't care how you do it. It may take some Beamer ball in this game to be able to win. In fact, scratch that. It will take Beamer ball to win this game. You will have to have an edge in all 3 phases. Special teams. You may need to block a punt like you get against Georgia State. You might need to find a way to create some extra possessions. You might need to go surprise onside. You might need to empty the bag of tricks with the trick plays. It's going to take something extra for South Carolina. But if they try and play ping pong back and forth with Georgia, sort of the, hey, we're going to wait for you to make a mistake and we'll go from there and we're just going to try and play our game, that can't be what happens. Not to say they need to press and play outside of themselves, but it will take something extra for South Carolina to be able to win this game. And they got to do it early to keep the crowd in it. For South Carolina on offense, I would just say, don't waste time trying to be who you're not. And we've seen, quite frankly, 2 weeks in a row, South Carolina struggling to run the football. 40 yards rushing against Arkansas, 79 yards on the ground against Georgia State. Both those programs are real good. Georgia State, obviously, a step below Georgia and a step below Arkansas, but they're going to contend for that conference. Don't waste time trying to be who you're not. Maybe dip your toe in the run game early to see if you can maybe catch them off guard. And if you can establish the run at all, phenomenal. But you've proven, hey, our success on offense is when Spencer Rattler throws the football. Is it the most consistent all the time? No. Threw 2 picks against Georgia State. But I think on top of that, if Spencer Rattler is going to be the one throwing the football, and I think he needs to be, in terms of what they do offensively, it needs to be Spencer Rattler throwing the ball for them to move the ball offensively. Protect him. Protect him with how you call the game, because the offensive line has had their struggles as well. But I would look very closely at what Kentucky did against Florida this past weekend. Going into that game, I thought Florida's going to pin their ears back and absolutely wallop Will Levis. It happened a couple of times. But what they did really effectively, and what I think South Carolina needs to do to the same token, is get Spencer Rattler moving. Get him on the rollout. Get him on play action. And when you don't have that, get quick game. Get easy access throws for him. It's 3 steps, balls out. Catching the shotgun, 1 step, balls out. To where you're not having to get from your first to your second to your third, and oh my goodness, there's a grown man from Georgia absolutely demolishing me right now. If he has to sit back there and wait for guys to get open for 4.5 seconds, you got problems. So get the ball out of his hands quick. Give him the opportunity to get the ball out of his hands quick. So that's what I think South Carolina has to do. Be able to throw the ball. Don't waste time being who you're not running the ball. You've shown that's not necessarily your bread and butter. And then defensively and special teams, don't try and play ping pong with these guys. Don't wait for them to make a mistake. Because if you wait for them to make a mistake, just full transparency, it may not happen, and it may not happen until later in the game to where it's too late. Momentum will be crucial. For Georgia, stay the course. Stay the course. The way that you hurt yourself in this game is just that, if you hurt yourself. If you want to mess around and somehow give the ball away, you have fluke turnovers, whatever it is, any way that you give this crowd oxygen, any way you give this team life, that's going to be something that compounds on itself. In a raucous road environment, if you want to allow that crowd to stay in the game, it's going to be trouble for you. So be sound is really the best way to say it. Georgia has, let's call it what it is, one of the best rosters in the country. Not just the SEC, one of the best rosters in the country. Roster don't matter a bit if you're putting the ball on the ground, if you're throwing the ball to the other team. But if Georgia just stays the course, plays their game, quite frankly, they could play ping pong with South Carolina a little bit here. They could play the we're going to wait for you to make a mistake kind of approach here. But if they do it to themselves, if they make those mistakes themselves, South Carolina is going to have some oxygen, and that's where it could get a little bit dicey for the Dogs. Now, here are my questions for Georgia, and I want to make this very, very clear. These are questions. These are not doubts. These are not reservations I have about Georgia, but these are things that we have yet to see from them thus far in the year, so that's why I have questions. First and foremost, Georgia has been an extremely pass-friendly kind of offense. Stetson Bennett has thrown it 30-plus times in both games. They have not had a running back carry the ball more than 10 times this season. Now, I believe Georgia can run the ball. They haven't done it yet, so we'll see what happens there. It remains to be seen, obviously, kind of a wait and see. But I think to win a game like this and beyond, for Georgia to get back to the college football playoff to win the SEC, you need to be able to run the ball, especially on the road. When you have however many thousands of fans yelling at you, screaming at you, creating a crazy atmosphere, like, again, will be this coming weekend, you got to be able to just take the ear out of the game, turn, hand the ball to Milton, hand the ball to McIntosh. Just allow those dudes to work. Second question I have for Georgia. Can they get after the quarterback? Because South Carolina's offensive line, like we have already alluded to before in this segment, they have issues. They have a little bit of a leaky faucet issue up front. Georgia, so far, they've played great defensively. Don't get it twisted. But through 2 games, how many sacks do you think they have as a unit? I'm pausing here to allow you to answer. Okay, good. They have 1 sack through 2 games. They've been dominant defensively. 1 sack against Oregon, 0 sacks against Samford. I don't doubt they can do it. Believe you me, I know they got some freak shows on that side of the ball. But you got to make Spencer Rattler uncomfortable in this game. Because if you allow him to sit back there and play 7-on-7, again, I have my reservations about his decision-making, but that's a risk you don't want to take defensively if you're Georgia. You do not want to allow Spencer Rattler to get comfortable, especially with the mismatch I believe you have up front. So we'll see what happens with running the ball and getting after the quarterback. It's going to be something Georgia has to have down the road. They haven't showcased it so far just yet, but again, I think they're capable, just haven't done it yet. But for Georgia, stay the course. Stay the course. Do not hurt yourself in this game. It feels like a fairly obvious statement to say, and believe you me, it is. Georgia knows that. They're telling the same thing to their guys in the locker room. Don't turn the ball over. But if they do, that's where this could get a little bit interesting. So our prediction for this game, at the end of the day, I think Georgia shows some toughness that, yes, they've exhibited in these last 2 games, but I think they do it in a little bit of a different way. Stetson Bennett, if he throws 30 times a game, I think they're actually going to have somebody else tote the ball a little bit more than they have in the past. I think you see a running back somewhere in the range of 15 carries. Georgia's toughness as a program is going to travel in this game. Georgia's experience in this program is going to travel in this game. On the offensive side of the ball, a little more than the defensive side of the ball, obviously, because of the new things they are breaking in on defense. But as a whole, Georgia, too talented, too tough. I don't think they allow Spencer Rattler and South Carolina to have that last kick. they're kind of in that wounded animal mode, so that's where it could get kind of risky. You get that last kick, you get that last effort from South Carolina. If they can snuff that out, which I believe they will, I expect Georgia to sort of take control of this game and win this one. So we have Georgia winning this game 38-14. The Dogs get it done in their first true road test of the season. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.